All right, here we go. All right, guys. All right, folks. All right, Storycomic. All right, welcome everybody. This is episode 22 of Storycomic Presents. We have with us here live in the studio, Chris and Luke, game artist and writer at copperhorde.com. And we also have here with us, my friend Doug Shute from Victory Condition Gaming. As some of you know, I'm also I hang out with him on Mondays when he does his kid.
Why do you say that so negatively, Barney? He's like, I hang out with him on Mondays.
Yeah. He babysits me on Mondays, and I think my wife does owe you a check, right? I think that's
exactly. Yeah. Actually, no, it's part of my community service.
It's one of those black market watches or something. Is that? All right, so we're gonna jump right into it because, as you know, we keep a pretty strict schedule here on this.
We can tell already.
Yes, Rick, we're already. Yeah, from got an hour. So what we're gonna do? We're gonna jump in. We're gonna introduce. Chris and Luke, as I say, the game artist and writer for copperhorde.com, and I'll let you both introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about yourselves, and then tell us a little bit about Copper Horde. So we'll start with Chris.
Hello, I'm Chris Sagebeck, and copperhorde.com. Do you get it? I guess is what I'm saying as we as we're talking about a little bit earlier. We thought it'd be great to start our franchising dreams of our gaming company dreams of sitting on a giant pile of copper coins, because that's what dragons do, and that's what artists and writers do at the very beginning when they don't make much money at all. But it is a vast hoard of copper.
And DM's Guild is really good about helping with that, by the way. The paying us in pennies part, anyway.
But my background is in animation and in comic books, in just art, just in general. And the thing that kind of brought me to working with Luke I guess everything that I've done, I've always just kind of wanted to draw monsters for D&D. I guess a lot of us have those sort of bucket list things, but that was one of the things that I get to check off by doing this, to get to just illustrate anything that's in one of my favorite role playing games. But that's kind of where I'm coming from, what I do.
And I'm Luke C.J. Smith. I'm a writer and a singer, and I'm the lead singer for a band called Ars Arcanum, based out of St. Louis, and happily the head writer at copperhorde.com, the so far only writer at copperhorde.com, and like Chris said, it's just been kind of a labor of love for us. I got into gaming just not too very long ago. Whenever 5th edition came out, I came on about that time. I'd only played like a handful of times before that, and it just right away, immediately, I started running, pre-made adventures, because that's how you get started, and then immediately started kit bashing them and figuring out other ways to mess with them and basically adapt the game to what my players were wanting to do, and that just gradually turned into writing these little adventures that we put together. I've done some fantasy writing. I have a novel that I put out called Proper Thieves, and almost immediately after that, I started doing this with Chris, and it's been just a blast. It's been a great time. So, and I hope it shows through in the work. I hope people who played our games can see the amount of fun we're having making these things.
And one of the ideas that over time, the Copper Horde is less of a brand, but more of just a place that people want to learn how to make games, learn how to do these sorts of things. So it's almost more of an entity where we're hoping that folks who want to do this can congregate around us. In the St. Louis area, I guess specifically, face to face. But our thought is that people create better in groups, and being around other people who are doing other cool things, and it is a thought that we've had.
It's the weirdest thing. I never liked working with other people creatively. In school, I was always the kid who, like, when it came group project time, I'm like, no, just let me do it. It'll get done. You'll get an A. Just leave me alone. Let me do it. But I'll tell you what, working with Chris has been a real blast. And so, working with a creative collaborator, it serves as a force multiplier. And and my ideas bounce off his ideas, and his ideas bounce off mine, and it just turns into something much better than either one of us could do on our own. And that's been the real fun thing about copperhorde.com is getting that going.
So you guys have 5 modules so far. How did you meet? So you guys kind of tell us a little bit about yourselves, but now tell us about how you guys formed. You gave us a history of the name of Copper Horde, but what was that impetus of where the two of you say, hey, let's make D&D modules?
Chris, vamp for a second. I gotta go grab something.
I'll jump in then. Sorry, I blanked. Can you repeat the question, Barney?
Sure. I get the question was what was the impetus of the two of you getting together and deciding let's make D&D modules?
I think it was
Love it. I love it.
Yeah, I think Luke was a member of a writing group. I think it was a writing group. And it was I guess we're very connected. At least I'm very connected to the comic book community, and I was looking for a community like the one that we wanted to create. And more, it was just, I think, we started chatting online, and maybe we were going to use the writing group for that. But more so, I think the creative process, or like how we put together those modules, are just sharing ideas. Luke is more organized than I am. But the awesome thing about the way he works is when you're a writer, and this is a tip for writers from an artist: have a world Bible, have a sort of like a loose plan. He lays things out in terms of like art really well. Like he has lists of this is what I want for the cover. These are must-haves. These are kind of would be good to have in terms of like art for the module. And he rolls with any sort of crazy thing that I kind of want to do. Like if I have because sometimes when you're drawing, you just draw and go, oh, this is kind of cool, but I don't really know where it lives. We have a lot of those that he can sometimes incorporate. So, I mean, a part of that process, I don't really deal a ton with like the writing, but I do like to interject some lore on occasion, just for fun. But I think that's one of the things that's really healthy about our collaboration is we're really open to the ideas that we bounce back and forth, and it's almost like improv in a way. You got to be ready to say like, okay, cool, yeah, and then go, just go for it. I mean, I don't think that, yeah,
for sure. So to explain my prop here real quick, so I don't recall exactly how we started talking about it, but at one point Chris had mentioned to me Dungeon Crawl Classics, which is, you people who are listening as this as a podcast can't see the image on the screen, but it's just basically these little thin booklets that's just maybe like a 30-page adventure chunk that you can run in a few nights. I think they're all level 0 characters, if I recall right. And Chris had mentioned his love for this, and I could totally see why. I got a few online because I wasn't aware of them, and just kind of thumbing through. I was like, yeah, it's just like so much creativity packed into this, because it's not a writer telling a story; it's a writer basically giving you a lot of things to do to tell a story, lots of hooks that you can use to tell a story, and I just love that. And so when we're building these adventures and these modules, I try to kind of honor that spirit by just loading it up with with all the crazy crap I can think of. little mysteries laid here or there. They have nothing to do with the story, but they're just flavor that you can use to make the world a little bit deeper and richer. And to bounce off what Chris was saying, it is a little bit like improv the way we work. It's I mean, I'll be like tootling along, I know where things are going, and suddenly it's like, what if the vampires are like the aliens in Aliens, and there's like, you know, nutrient tubes feeding into the people they have gestating, and I'm like, yeah, okay.
I think you're talking about when I was want the spiders to have some sort of like, maybe the vampires were in the spider eggs, and
that's right.
There's some sort of undead. Yeah,
that's right.
I like to twist that stuff around just for fun.
Right, and I thought I knew where it was going, and suddenly it's like, no, let's go a totally different way, and it's way more compelling because it's an idea that's kind of yours, but it's also kind of coming from outside of yourself, and it makes it feel bigger somehow. And that's the nice thing about collaboration that I found.
And I think now I'm remembering the Dungeon Crawl Classics right around the time, I think in 2006, maybe it was 2014. I found them because I went out to Gen Con. And I'd been there a couple years, and I was shopping my skills around, and the Dungeon Crawl Classics, even though stylistically they're a little bit kind of away from the way that I draw, that started to get me thinking about, you know, doing some freelance work. And after a while, it just like the way comics kind of comes into my life, it's just, you know, we can publish this there's nothing stopping us from publishing, and with an established gaming system that has an open source content, and them unlocking the Forgotten Realms and all these other cool areas that we can play with, that we played with when we were kids.
If you don't mind, I have a question. So since 5th edition, we all know 5th edition is like the most popular game for role-playing games out there. That was the decision, like when you started Copper Horde, was to just go with 5th edition, or have you thought about any other open OGLs or open game licenses to create adventures for? But I know that 5th edition is probably going to get you the most eyeballs on your product, especially early on, but is the plan to eventually move on from 5th edition and maybe, you know, dabble in Savage Worlds or even Goodman game, you know, Dungeon Crawl Classics? Or,
well,
you know,
this might elicit some antipathy from your audience, but I don't really have a whole lot of stake in the game of jumping around from system to system.
Sure, that's fine.
I personally, I like to tell people who are just getting into gaming that, you know, they're kind of two kinds of players. There are players for whom the game is there as an excuse to, or the story is there as an excuse to play a game, to roll dice, do math, whatever. And there's kind of the other side of the coin. There's people who, you know, for whom the game is there just to deliver the story. And I'm very much that latter camp. The game exists basically for the stories that we can tell around it. And so whatever system you're using doesn't make a whole lot of difference to me. I learned 5th edition. My brain only has so much room in it. I can only remember so many mechanics. And so if I'm going to run a game, it may as well be 5th edition, because you can tell just about any kind of story using that engine. It's certainly, you know, based around, you know, European sword and sorcery type affairs, but I mean, we've broken that and used it for all kinds of things, Weird West and you know, lots of different settings. It can be done, and it's a lot of fun to do it. You know, that way.
Absolutely. So, I was just kind of curious, just because, you know, I know quite a few different publishers and folks that are, you know, try to make you know, this as their full-time job, or you know, want to make a decent living at it. Bringing, like you said, you don't make a whole lot of money. It's more of a passion project. So, you know, you do have to get a lot of eyeballs on your product early on. So I was just kind of curious if you were, you know,
I wish I could say it was a mercenary financial decision made with a lot of, you know, economic forethought, but really it's just laziness on my part.
And I think like how I came to it, I was working with another buddy of mine, and we were trying to develop, this is when 3.5 was in the open source, and we were trying to develop something called Ronin, why am I blanking on this? Ronins and Revolvers, which is sort of an Old West mixed with sort of an Asian backdrop, but in the world of Dungeons and Dragons. It was too cumbersome. I think to really worry about, a system, or to like develop all of these, a huge world break. But I think what we're doing, this is sort of like bite size, little areas, genres of a world, and I think it's a bit of a better approach, at least to your brain. But I think when we create, I still kind of go back to that and I go, hey, these are things that would be in the middle guard. These are things that would be in the Furies. These are things that would be in the Endless Desert. A lot of different realms as we get to explore around and build out that world. But me, I'm a mercenary. I have the luxury of being a professor that teaches the things that I'm doing in art. So I have to professionally do this as well. So yeah, I'm as an artist, I would be doing drawings to maintain my skill level anyway. So whether I sell them or whether I put them in books or whether I tuck them away in a folder to sell at a con, I'm going to be doing it anyway. So yeah, if you got any publishers that would art here and there, I definitely would am interested in chatting, especially if they're. But that's the nice thing about having the professor gig. I can be choosy about who I work with.
Sure.
I don't have to hustle. So if it's something that I'm not into, I just say I'm not into it.
I feel kind of touched that you chose me. You have many choices for your writing companions, so I'm pleased you chose me.
So tell me about your five book. Is that part of one shared universe? Like, is that like if somebody played like Child God of the Violet Temple, could they then just jump into like Sea Prison of the Furies after?
I feel like I have to have a disclaimer here because we only sell these on DM's Guild. And so officially I have to say that these exist in one of the Wizards of the Coast owned official realms. But there's not a whole lot of overlap. You see the Zentarim here and there. Just we kind of toss it in there to, so there's a tie. But I think spiritually it's kind of their own thing. So there, as Chris alluded to earlier, each of the games we've done has been, or each of the adventures we've done has been in a different area of kind of this shared world. And so one's started off as kind of an Arabian Nights themed sort of adventure called Child God of the Violet Temple. And then we moved on. We did a gothic horror kind of set in Eastern Europe. And that adventure is called The Vampire Factory of Mad Baron Petrifax. And then just recently, our most recent one is in kind of a South Pacific pirate-themed area, and it's called Sea Prison of the Furies. And so each of these different settings gives us a chance to kind of explore different mythologies, different backgrounds, different settings, and have fun with all the tropey goodness that comes with that kind of thing in an adventure module. So yeah, there is a shared world. But, if you ask our lawyers, there's absolutely not a shared world.
It allows us, I think one of the neat things is it allows us to pull from area. I mean, D&D does pull from mythology. They do pull from a lot of different things in folklore. But I think one of the things that I really enjoy is we take the things that we sort of know already, sort of the general classes, and then we pull from areas that D&D hasn't necessarily touched on. I mean,
which is not easy. I mean, they called a lot of folklore, a lot of mythology.
Because in the Sea Furies, the world that we're kind of working with there, we started to talk about why there's only like a few types of dwarves. Let's make some different dwarves. And we pulled from different elements of Pacific mythology and brought a whole new sort of twist on that sort of thing.
Absolutely, and Chris is the one. I think Chris has a stronger, a deeper background in mythology than I do. He's always bringing up interesting, obscure mythological creatures and things to seed the world with. So, in it, those kinds of ideas, those kinds of different like character, races and classes and things like that, we have these kind of side project books. So we have our main adventure books, the three that I mentioned earlier, and then for each of those we have kind of a side project that's all character customization options. So for Child God of the Violent Temple, we have a book called Knights and Knaves of Alamabad being the city where the adventure takes place. It just gives us a chance to kind of flesh out that world a little bit more, and give some character creation ideas that if you're gonna make a character specifically to play in that adventure, here's how you can fit in a little bit better. Character backgrounds and special loot that you can you might be able to look for in the game, that sort of thing.
And there's a, to jump in on that, there's a race that Luke came up with that I'm in love with. I haven't had a chance to play a character yet, but the Ankhabut, is it? I believe Ankhabut.
Ankhabut.
They're a hidden race of spider people who have been hiding, and they're trying to act as if they're human. They're completely secret sort of race, and they try and pass themselves off as human, but they're just oddly sinister, and they drink blood and such, and it's just odd. It tickles that really odd sense of just like, and it was such an awesome challenge to be able to draw the like what is a spider person that's supposed to look almost human? What does that look like? And it was a challenge, but it was really kind of, it gave him a big beard, and some of the talons and stuff is hidden underneath the beard, and the little eyes are hidden in eyebrows and things like that. And it's just, I don't know. I'm the kind of guy who, if it's odd, a little outside of the realm of things with, and yeah.
So talk to us about, so say for instance, we have somebody who's watching or listening who says, I love D&D, I like writing I'm a writer, or I love D&D and I'm an artist. What's the first step they do to do what you did by like creating a module? What's the process? How does one get into doing something like this?
I can start this one. So for me, it was making adventures to run for my friends. I mean, all three of these adventures that we've done are things I made to run at the table for friends of mine. Gives you the benefit of kind of being able to see what works and what doesn't, what people react to and what people don't react to. And then once you've got, basically once you've run it, you can sit down, and at that point, it's as percolating as it's going to get. You're right off the table, and you start jotting down notes like, oh yeah, this is good stuff. So step one, make your own stuff for the table. On the usual, my long-term campaigns that I run 3 different long-term groups, and all 3 of them are pre-made. But I do like doing short little 1, 2, 3 night adventures. Those are the ones I turn into our adventure modules. I don't think anybody wants to spend. I don't want to spend the amount of time it takes to build a giant, thick, Curse of Strahd or whatever. I don't have the time for that. And if I did, I don't know that I would be able to sell it for as much as my time would be worth to make that. But a 30-page, dungeon crawl classic type affair is absolutely something that we can put together in a reasonable amount of time. And it's something that, a dungeon master can pick up and drop into an ongoing campaign. And that gives us a little bit more legs. It's not like we're asking a person who's buying it to run this for 2 years. Like I just finished running Tomb of Annihilation. It took me 2 years. I'm not asking somebody to put that kind of a commitment down. I'm just saying, here, this is something you can put into your existing game and have a great time, and you don't have to do all the planning. I'll take care of the planning for you. So step one, make a thing for your friends. Make sure your friends like it, and then start writing around it.
Yeah, and then I mean that's where you tag me in, and I would say the actual follow through and willpower to make it happen. I equate this a lot in the classroom. I tell folks that there are not a million. There's a ton of fantastic guitarists that never make it out of the basement. I guess is what I'm saying is there's just intensely talented people who are not working because they don't have the willpower. They don't have the drive. They don't have the follow through to actually take the awesome ideas, because there are so many great ideas that every dungeon master and all these players all over the world have. They just don't take it any further than the table. and that's really all it is. I think, finding other like-minded folks, finding an artist, finding a graphic designer, someone who's wants to put together books. It's really just a little bit more work to get over that hump to put something out into independent publication.
Let me ask you a question on that, if I may, Chris. How do you find that motivation? At the end of a long day, how do you find that motivation to sit down and create?
No, it's I think the art is actually, I was just telling Luke this last night. We met last night over our regular meeting, and I told him I'm taking next week off so I can draw. And he's like, "Why are you going to work?" And I'm like, "No, that's the part that I love. The after I get done for work, I can come home and I can draw. I could spend an hour or two just sort of focusing on art. That's sort of the happy place. And that's also, if you could find someone like that, to work for, or if you could explain it to them that they need to be drawing anyway, so they keep their skills up." Most artists don't want to hear that. They're all like, pay me. But I imagine I might have been that way too if I didn't have a full-time gig currently. So don't, all artists out there, don't think that I'm saying you should work for free. But it's, we made it simple. I mean, you were talking about, I think, contracts, a little bit earlier. We're just like, whatever we do, we just split in half. And if we need to put money out for, doing advertising or the website or whatever, we just chop it in half. It's not, I'm assuming once if we advance to like silver or gold horde or possible electrum horde, maybe platinum, then we'll bring the lawyers in, because we'll be a national conglomerate and we'll be big fat dragons. But now we just keep it simple.
Right now, our monthly take from selling these on DM's Guild is I would say Taco Bell money. Recently, I feel like we upgraded to like Applebee's money.
Yeah.
So we're doing okay. It's trending up slowly, gently, but it's trending up.
So is there like a module format that you are given to do, or like some sort of standard format from Wizards of the Coast to say, if you want to be a part of this, you have to follow this format, this font, this graphic layout?
So Wizards doesn't really give you quite that stringent of guidelines, fortunately. So while Chris does the artwork, I do the layout, which helps because I've got a bit of a layout and design background, and so that's kind of part of where I get my motivation from, is kind of like doing the layout and then having the boxes in that layout that I can fill. I got to fill all these boxes and then it's done. But to answer your question, though, no, their guidelines are not that strict. I mean, you'll see things on DM's Guild that's just basically a Word document, just a straight up Word document. Sometimes one that's just center formatted and written in Comic Sans.
So,
all right, guys, that's how you want to play it.
A lot of the really, really early 70s D&D stuff was that way too.
Oh no,
it was like on type paper, folded in half.
Hey, no hate on that. That's how it is. That's old school. Good for them. But I do like to try. I try to hew a little bit closer to the style guide that the Wizards it does for their current stuff, their 5th edition stuff, and with different flourishes here and there for us. But I try to keep it more or less that way. But as far as if somebody wanted to go that way, I personally use Adobe InDesign, which is a little bit pricey. It's cheaper if you have a student account, but that's what I use for my layout and design work. You could certainly make Microsoft Word work for you just as well, I'm sure. Might take a little extra doing and some extra sweat and some extra swearing, but it can be done. So yeah.
And the books look sharp. I mean, that's one of the things. I consider this a rock star relationship. So thank you, Luke. I just deliver up the art. I'm just like, boom, here you go, and then he makes it go together. And I'll tell you that makes it really, really nice, for an artist. So if you're a writer and you want to smooth talk us, that's always helpful. I mean, obviously, give us parameters. 300 to 600 DPI with TIFF, PNG file, whatever you need us, we can get it to you in that manner. But Yeah, he makes it easy.
Well, I as a writer who once upon a time had delusions of wanting to write comic books, I had a number of embarrassing situations where I would approach an artist like, "Hey, I got a script I wrote. You want to spend the next 6 months drawing this for me?" And never quite went over as well as you would hope. So I feel like I have to bend over backwards to make my artist happy.
So, talk to us a bit now about your latest module. We mentioned that Sea Prison of the Furies. I know that Doug and I took a look at it a couple weeks ago, and I want to dive in because it seems as though from my knowledge of D&D module, this one is pretty unique compared to other ones.
We try to make each one unique and serve a specific function. So the previous one we did, Vampire Factory, that one was designed specifically as a tutorial of sorts, like a book form tutorial for teaching people how to play Dungeons and Dragons. Because I had like a group of 10 people I needed to teach to play Dungeons and Dragons like in a night. And so I wrote this adventure and we turned into this book, and the book turned into basically a how-to guide to play D&D. Sea Prison of the Furies was also custom made for a specific purpose. I was running my first con game. Oh, wait, try that again. My first game at a convention, I should say. Sorry. That came out wrong. I was running my first game at a convention, and I was really nervous. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what kind of players I was going to have. Am I going to people who just want to do combat? Am I going to people who want to do nothing but traps and puzzles, people who want all conversation and diplomacy. And so what I did was I created a kind of a choose your own adventure style of adventure, which, I mean, every D&D adventure kind of is that to a certain extent, but this is very much kind of baked into the bones of the thing. Baked into the bones. That's a really weird mixed metaphor. Anyway, so what you have up front is you have a map. You're basically deposited at one end of a flotilla of ships. Always like the concept of like a prison hulk, right? Like an old derelict ship left out there for prisoners to be left on. So this is like a flotilla of prison hulks. And it's just filled with like the scum and villainy of the Empire. And so you are deposited at the end of like a sea battle. You wind up stranded on this at one end of this flotilla of sea hulks. You have to make your way to the other end. So you get this map, and you go. It's just basically this, bridges between ships, and ship bridge, all the way down. Each of the different ships has a different thing going on it, whether it's combat or whether it's a puzzle or a trap. Or a riddle, or there's some creativity challenges. Like at one point, you run into a guy who won't let you pass his boat unless you write him a song, and the party has to write a song at the table and sing it before he'll let you go by. Some of this could be kind of obnoxious in the right hands. I'm happy to say it was pretty obnoxious in my hands a few times. But it basically lets the party decide what they want for themselves. Do they want more fighting? They want more, they want a mix of things. And so that's kind of the genesis of Sea Prison of the Furies.
I really like the time limit. If you play with a lot of folks who have very indecisive about how do we go through the door, you check it, if there's this clock ticking, that lets people get over the ultra planning and the bickering and the side shenanigans, and on top of that, after I read it completely through, I also had, this is a very Escape from New York type vibe. It's like you're going, or warriors mixed with Escape from New York. You're going from gang to gang, and now you're in this whole new world, and just one boat over. So those are two things that I enjoyed.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that. Yeah, so there is a time limit on it. It is expected to be running in a single night. There's no multi-night campaigns for this. You actually set a clock at the table. You have 3 hours to get from one end of the ship to the other. Otherwise, that boat's going to leave, and you have enough time to get a short rest in, but that's about it. And you keep it as pretty vague for the most part. So,
and one thing that I do think is interesting about it is that it has replayability in my opinion, because this isn't an option. This isn't an adventure where I think you can visit every boat. So you could play it over again if you want to try it in sort of a different way. And modules don't tend to normally have that. I think that the least that I have seen over the years. And also I look at that and go, it's a challenge to get to the end for sure, because I think of some of the groups that we played in, Barney, and I don't know if we'd make it through all that in 3 hours. We'd probably be, left there. And then we'd have to survive a month in the prison and wait for the next boat to come, which might be fun too. It's a full-on campaign. We become gang leaders yourselves.
Yeah. Hey, honestly, I'd love to see that. I would love to see the game that after a failed run of Sea Prison of the Furies. I think that'd be a lot of fun, actually.
So that would be interesting. Doug, you DM'd a lot. What would that look like? Say, for instance, if somebody successfully went through the entire run on Sea Prison of the Furies, and then do an adventure for a month, and then they, by happenstance, they get dropped off again at this boat. And like,
that'd be great. Oh man.
Right on.
So talk to us a bit about like some for those that are thinking, hey, this sounds kind of interesting. And you mentioned the time limit. You mentioned that it is basically it's a flotilla of
prison hulks.
Yeah. So of what is it, like 12 boats altogether?
Yes.
12 or 15.
I don't actually have it in
all lashed together in various states of some are better than others.
So is this more or less like, how much of this, as you say, there's a time limit to it? What are some of the, without obviously giving away the ending to the module, but what would it be like what are some of the other things other than the setting and the time limit of these little small pieces in there? Like, like I kind of want to steer them towards going towards this direction because this boat's super cool. Like, what are some of those things that you like? If this was a movie trailer, this would be a scene they would definitely show.
I'm pretty pleased with the trap boats. So I have this kind of recurring thing in some of our books where we have this a trap maker who he makes these real elaborate death traps, and so he created 3 boats specifically for the flotilla to just use it to experiment on the prisoners. And so I'm a big fan of the trap ships. I do like making ships that are traps that make no real sense in the real world, but nobody's going to build this as a practical means of keeping somebody out of, say, their evil headquarters. But I don't know. Something about the me being raised on He-Man and G.I. Joe. I just love a good death trap. If the walls aren't closing in on me slowly with spikes sticking out of them, I'm just never comfortable.
Yeah, what was it? Somebody said the Gen X is like, I thought I'd see a lot more quicksand.
Yeah, not as big a factor as you would have thought. Yeah.
But I looked up videos to figure out if I ever did fall in. Now I know how to get out. I thought it was completely dangerous.
How do you get out?
You lay flat and scoot forward. It's like sense. It was the internet will save us all.
As long as we're on this tangent, I was out taking pictures along the edge of the Mississippi River not too long ago, and I thought for sure I was going to be hopping off this little rise down onto solid ground. Nope, mud up to my hip. As I was going down, I was like, oh shit! I should have been paying more attention to those quicksand videos. Made my way out, but it was not pretty. It was a lot of screaming and grunting and sweating, and I didn't lay flat. I can tell you that. It was awkward and ugly.
There was a few things I think that were highlights. I think for me in the story, and I guess I saw the fact that there's an opportunity to fight to pit fight 3 Minotaurs. And I mean, if you've seen the cover. And I paged through it because we were talking about different options for the cover, and this is what I don't know. I as an artist, I'm like, dude, I want to draw that. So I was just that was one of the big things that kind of popped out at me. And I really kind of went into actually the various stages, I think, of a pit fighter. If you look at all three of the minotaurs on there, there's one that's very much like, like real happy, real kind of frilly, real kind of like, almost reddish, like your beard, Barney. He probably doesn't get hit too much. And then there's the other one who's charging forward. And I said, I got to draw one with striped pirate pants. That was a sort of a qualification. That's the bruiser. And then there's the dude in the back who's just like staring dead in the camera. I try to like really, when I plan out these compositions, to go really deep into how the flow works around to how the flow looks around the cover. And he's just staring straight at the fighter that's standing there with the axe. And you don't know if he's the toughest one because he's been through the most, or if he's just like, oh God, not again. But I also put him real low. It's open to speculation that there's stairs there. He could be just giant and freakish if you really look deep into the composition. But that's I don't know. It's the little fun that I think artists have to hide that kind of stuff in the telling the story through the actual art, other than just sort of the craft of being able to knock something out. But the Minotaur brothers, I loved. Also, it was cool to draw a frog priestess, so that was pretty badass. And now we're developing for the newer work, that class of frog people.
And you haven't even mentioned the pirate beholder that you drew, which is just badassest thing in the world. I will pay you good money to get the original of that, because man, that is so cool. The problem is the pirate beholder does not actually appear in this adventure. he was kind of like cut from the original draft, unfortunately. But oh man, the picture that Chris drew of the pirate beholder is something to behold. So we're putting on the cover of the follow-up, the Knights and Knaves of the Furies character customization book. So that's coming up before too long. So
well, in a way, we have it. Yeah, I was gonna say in a way, because it's the very last page of it. It's almost like the post-credit scene.
Yeah,
it's like
right, exactly.
So how do you, just from a logistics perspective, like how, when you sit down and when you make a module, how do you decide how many players it should be that it's for?
Well, I typically just assume 5 players. That seems like it's kind of a standard across, this kind of material. And then as far as like levels go, like what level player or characters they should be, I kind of make it dependent on the group that I write it for originally. So when I sit down to actually write it out for publication, it's not radically different from what I make for my friends. Because I mean, it's deeper for sure. I don't go into nearly as much detail with my friends because there's just no time to do that at the table. If you're going to be adding extra adventure hooks for other people or backstory, they do. At least my friends don't want to hear it. But it's good. It's good for the DM to kind of get themselves in that headspace. So I think I've lost the thread. What was the question again? I'm sorry.
my question was what's your favorite thing to order at Taco Bell? That was the no, it was like
something.
They discontinued breakfast, and that pisses me off.
Frito burrito. The Frito burrito is one of the greatest inventions by man, and there is nothing on that menu that is better enough to warrant paying more than $1.29. And that's how much the Frito burrito costs. Thank you for asking, Barney.
I want to jump in on the numbers question. How do you determine how many numbers or how many players and such? I don't have a part in the sort of the balance of it, but I think I place a lot of the dungeon masters who are running the module can adapt, I think, because I've run games before and say that there's, I don't know, if there's 3 Minotaurs there, and they trash 2 of them already. You're just like, oh, another one stands up. Or if they're getting really thrashed, you really kind of wax and wane to the amount of where you're challenging the players, but also not, completely destroying them unless it fits a purpose in the storyline for them to actually be decimated, not outright murdered. And I think that's how I've approached working with, like, playing and running modules in the past. Is it's loose guidelines, but you always have those surprises. Somebody gets a couple of lucky hits in, and your big bad is just like you just wasted an orc. So give the power to the DMs, in my opinion.
Good point. But in terms of making something that they can just kind of sit down with at the table and play without putting a whole lot of extra work into it, I tend to skew towards 3rd level just because it's low enough that it's easy to challenge people, but it's high enough that they get their superpower. So in 5th edition D&D, 3rd edition is where every class has their kind of their special abilities. Nobody's running like real soft and squishy anymore. You get your ability to do the thing that your class is best at. So that's typically why I skew that way. It goes different ways. Like Vampire Factory is made specifically to teach people how to play, so they start at 1st level so they can learn their characters. But for Sea Prison, we went to 3rd level because that's kind of where to me that's a sweet spot for a good time.
So where do you see? As you're talking a bit earlier, I just wanted to jump in a bit more on that. Is the Copper Horde, and I know Doug asked the question earlier. So do you see in your foreseeable future is only working in 5th edition D&D modules?
I think so. I mean, unless Chris, you have some burning desire to make some Legend of the Five Rings stuff, because I could totally see you being all over Legend of the Five Rings, which is a fantastic game.
Yeah, I think as like our projects, I think we'll probably stick to 5e or stick to whatever D&D type realm that there is. But I still see Copper Horde as less of a company, but more of an artist group. So like we would be like, if there was some other people who were like, I'm an artist, help me, give me some advice, or if people wanted to just find I just see so much success in artists together in one place, and having like one website to where they can go and use that as sort of like the gateway to find out how to buy their stuff. And I just know that at least in St. Louis, in terms of comics, we've become pretty successful with a group like that. We have one big group that makes some types of comics, and then all the little groups that kind of spawn from that one big group just makes the whole creative realm that much more rich. And that's how I kind of see this. So I would say that things coming from Copper Horde could be, anything. Things coming from us, I mean, at least for now, is D&D stuff, because that's kind of what we know. But mechanically, I think I can pivot, depending on, I don't know what other games Luke's playing, but sometimes it's difficult to. Well, a story is a story, and then I guess narrative storytelling. If it's in sci-fi or wherever you have it, is still the same. Adventures are still somewhat structured the same, but who knows?
Because I know it seems as though that I don't know, and Doug probably knows more about this than I do, is that there seems to be a lot of these companies that are actually almost doing like open source in a way to let other people create. Like, for instance, White Wolf has now like the Storyteller's Vault, where it's allowing crowdfunding ways for people to make their own modules, much like this as well.
Cool.
Yeah, that seems to be a very big trend in the industry with different publishers. We just saw Free League open up their Free League workshop to let folks kind of just create adventures, there's certain stipulations that you have to fit, when you're creating content. But then you'll submit it to like you drive through RPG under their banner, and then you get, I think it's like 60% of the sale. And then, of course, Drive Through RPG gets a percentage, and then Free League gets the rest. So, there are, it seems to be a trend that folks want to, especially with publishers, where they want folks creating content. And, and it's a good way to get started in the industry, is just kind of, if you've got a system that you really like to play in, you just kind of create these little, these I want to say adventures or modules, put them out there. Sometimes you just create them and you put them as pay as what you want, and you just kind of get a little bit of traction that way, and then eventually you can pay, put them out there for a couple bucks, $3, $4, and it's how you gain your foothold.
Absolutely, and it makes all the sense in the world. I mean, dungeon masters work hard.
Yeah.
You guys all run games. You work hard, and so at the end of the day, if you can take that work and maybe make a few bucks on it on the side, absolutely, why not? That's
Sure.
It's icing on the cake, sure, but it's I like icing.
And playing is game testing. I mean,
Exactly.
and it's fun. That's the other
Absolutely.
thing.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're getting close to the hour. So I just wanted to have you both kind of tell us a bit about what's coming up next for Copper Horde. You did mention that you are, so this Sea Prison of Furies is brand new. This is just been released. And how often do you guys make you guys make like one a year, two a year? How has this been going for you?
Chris, tell them what our schedule is like, Chris.
I think we sprint and then rest. We will put a bunch out pretty quickly. I think we're in a sprinting phase. I think generally we're looking at least one module a year, and then a supplement, or I think 2 things a year is a good stream. But we do have the next I don't know, probably year planned out. You want me to tell them about that?
By all means, go for it, guy.
We're working on supplemental character classes and races. As I was mentioning before, we're going to have a dwarf class, a few things that you can play that's sort of tied to the Furies backdrop. Something that I particularly enjoy recently is I've been designing weapons. So we're going to come out with a book of knives, and
not a book of knives, the book of knives.
The book of knives.
Give them the title. The book of knives.
No, volumes, like 1, 2, 3. They did it with the monster manuals. But I've always enjoyed kind of like making weapons, thinking up what cool things they could do, what prices that would take on your soul, and just stuff to give ideas for DMs. And then we're after that, the next module we're going to move on to is more in the sort of Eastern flavor. It's going to be a battle of the bards. It's going to be a story where you're invited to a sort of an imperial battle of the bands with various different things, but it's going to be of a sort of a shogun samurai-esque flavor. So we're kind of lily padding around the different genres that people enjoy in the D&D realms, and that's sort of at least the animation and the comics that I do is my bread and butter is the samurai genre. So we'll be there.
And I have to give some credit where credit is due. My wife asked me one time, she wanted to play an all-bard campaign. The idea for a Battle of the Bands, which is just an all-bard campaign, that was entirely her idea. I was like, oh, that's brilliant. We're absolutely doing that. And so now I'm tickled to death that we're gonna be able to put it out and give it to the rest of the world, because it's this one I'm super excited about. I can't wait to get this one done and out. This is gonna be a lot of fun.
And
you
it's
could do like an all bard and thief campaign, like an Ocean's 11 kind of setup too.
Ooh, I like that.
A heist
I like that.
module.
I like. See, the first game we did actually, the Child God of the Violet Temple is a heist. It's like the whole book is a heist. So I feel like we've done a heist. We probably need to come back to that at some point, though. That's a great idea. That's a great idea.
But some of the teasers on that were really interesting because I think one of the things you mentioned was like an all sort of like almost punk rock dwarven type band. It's not all people playing the I should know the name of the instrument, but the sort of traditional instruments. But it's bringing in all the different fun cultures in terms of like what would make bards awesome.
Exactly.
I like dwarves, so that I guess you could tell that I mentioned them quite a bit. All giants like little things.
we're both dwarf guys, actually. Yeah. So we have a dwarf campaign coming up later on that I'm pretty stoked about too. We'll get there. We'll get there.
So if if there's an artist or a writer listening to this and they said, well, I guess instead of having to just go straight to DM's Guild and doing this all by myself, maybe I could just reach out to Copper Horde and see if I can work with them directly. Is that a possibility?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, we would love to hear from them for sure. Yeah. And they can reach out to us at Copperhorde HORDE, copperhorde@gmail.com.
That's the part where we become an army. When we cease sitting on our pile of pennies and become many people who bring awesome things to the world.
Yeah.
Sitting on like smaller piles of pennies.
So tell us where people can find you. You have Twitter, Instagram, all that kind of fun stuff?
I have my normal website is chrissagaback.com that handles all of my sort of artist type things. But most of my stuff goes under the moniker of Chambaragogo, which that leads straight into my chambaragogo.com or Chambaragogo on Instagram. My sensibilities are to make up words, and then you're the only person using that word online, so you don't have to compete for anything. And Chambara is, or Chanbara or Chambara is also called, is basically Japanese for sword fighting films, the samurai genre films. And then you add a go-go to it, that means it's that, plus it's a party. So I have a YouTube channel with some of samurai animations, so if you look for that, that moniker is pretty much everywhere. You want to look at some crazy fine arts type experimental animation, then just go to my website because that's my professor page, which is chrissagaback.com.
And my professional page is lucecjsmith.com. But most of what we do for Copper Horde stays on copperhorde.com. Again, it's HORDE.com. And other than that, the only other thing I would throw out is if you're interested in Dungeons and Dragons themed metal, you can listen to my band Ars Arcanum at arsarcanum.net, ARSARCANUM.net. And we are almost done recording. Once the plague ends, we're going to finish recording our first album, which is a metal retelling of the Out of the Abyss adventure for 5th edition. So it's awesome. It's been a trip. It's been a lot of fun, and I can't wait to have it finished and done. So
thank you. And then my guest host for tonight, Doug, do you want to tell people where they can find you?
You can find me on storycomic.com.
Coup d'etat!
All the time. Oh wait, oh no. You can check Victory Condition Gaming on YouTube. That's where most of our content is, and then also victoryconditiongaming.com. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can go at DougVCGaming because somebody took VC Gaming, and I need to send them a message to tell them that I am the rightful owner of that one. But yeah, no, just if you like RPGs, check us out on YouTube. We do all sorts of content on that platform.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, and we will look forward to seeing more modules coming from copperhorde.com.
Thanks so much for having us, Barney. Thanks, Doug.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Barney.
thanks for having me, Barney.
Out of active memory.
So, because you're in Missouri then too, right, Luke?
Oh yeah.
So you must have, if you're in the basement, do you guys have like a dehumidifier running like 24 hours a day?
Well, we did anyway, because it's a swamp basically. Missouri is a swamp. I mean,
It's
St. Louis, as I
moist.
understand it, was a like a hardship post when the French were here, and so and that has not changed over the last 200 years. So
It's a moist state, that's for sure.
moist. That's the word for it.